Prime Minister orders a review into low-traffic neighbourhoods. Rishi Sunak claims he's on the driver's side, but Labour says his words are empty.
Well, I can't take the Prime Minister seriously as the motorist friend. This is just words from the Prime Minister.
Drone attacks on Moscow. Zelensky warns the war is coming to Russia. Plus, on their feet for the ultimate competitor as Australia put a dampener on Stuart Broad's big day. And
yeah, that's Prince William.
surprise, surprise, a planet-saving burger served by a prince.
This is ITV News with Lucy Watson.
Good evening. The Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, has ordered a review into low-traffic neighbourhoods, saying he is on the side of drivers. The PM told the Sunday Telegraph he supports people who use their cars to do all the things that matter to them. LTNs, as they're known, exist in London, Bristol, Birmingham, Bournemouth and other cities across the country. Their aim is to reduce pollution in quiet residential areas, but critics argue they push traffic onto other roads, causing more congestion. Our political correspondent Carl Dinnan has the story.
Low traffic neighbourhoods have become highly divisive. In Oxford, the barriers that mark them have been repeatedly vandalised. The government recently stopped funding them, and now the Prime Minister has announced a review. Ministers say they don't always work well for people on the outside.
The reality is that they can work in some areas, but in other areas there's more than a suspicion that all they're doing is just driving traffic into neighbouring areas, which is actually causing more congestion.
Although to date academic studies don't seem to suggest that's necessarily the case.
All of the available sort of independent evidence at the minute says, I mean, it's a bit of a mixed picture. In some places you see a bit of that, but overall, you're not seeing these huge increases in congestion and traffic at the boundaries. And, we would expect to pick that up if it was really pronounced.
And they are largely popular with those who live inside them.
Specifically here, I think it's a very good idea to have the no car zones.
In my opinion, yes, absolutely. This road used to have a lot of people doing cut-through every morning and every evening.
For people who actually need a car for their livelihood, yeah, it's made life harder for them.
The Prime Minister has clearly decided there's political mileage in being the motorist's friend, especially if he can make Labour look like they're not. He told the Sunday Telegraph, "I've become slightly more alarmed by the Labour Party's position. It's quite anti-motorist. I just want to make sure people know that I'm on their side in supporting them to use their cars, to do all the things that matter to them." Labour don't agree.
Well, I can't take the Prime Minister seriously as the motorist friend. This is a Prime Minister who personally took enough money out of the potholes budget. You could have used that money to fill potholes from Land's End to John O'Groats and back again.
Rishi Sunak reinforced his message with a picture of himself behind the wheel of Margaret Thatcher's old Rover today. He said he was reviewing anti-car schemes across the country. But he is sticking to his pledge to ban the sale of new petrol and diesel motors by 2030, despite a letter from 43 Tory MPs and Lords who said that was heavy-handed and damaging to the economy.
Now, Carl, the debate on green policies has been ramping up quite a bit since last week's by-elections. What do the Prime Minister's comments today suggest to do?
Look, the Tories won the election in Uxbridge on the edge of London by opposing the Labour mayor's ultra-low emission zone there, which would have penalised the owners of older vehicles. And I think what's going on here is they've looked at that and they thought, well, let that work. Let's do more of that and see if we can make it a bit of a wedge issue to divide us, to differentiate us from Labour, even though it's got to be said that all the Prime Minister has done today is introduce a review on a measure that is really the domain of local government. and possibly with the unintended consequence that those backbenchers, and there are quite a lot of them in his own party, who want him to delay the ban on the sale of petrol and diesel cars in 2030 and want him to push that back by about 5 years. That will make that pro-car rhetoric on his behalf will make it easier for them to make their point. But look, I think more consequential than all this stuff about LTNs at the moment, because he's holding on to that ban on petrol and diesel and cars in 2030, much more consequential will be what happens this week when the Prime Minister's got some big announcements to make on new North Sea oil and gas licences. Environmentalists say with heat waves all around the place, forest fires all around the place, this is a terrible thing to do. He will say it's essential for Britain's energy security while the country makes the transition to renewable energy.
Carl, thank you. A suicide bomber has killed at least 40 people and injured 200 others at a political rally in Pakistan. An emergency has been declared in hospitals close to where it happened in the town of Kar in the northwest of the country. It's an area that borders Afghanistan. The event was being held in support of a hardline cleric who is part of Pakistan's coalition government. The attack comes as parties prepare for a general election in the autumn. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky had an ominous warning today that war is returning to Russia after a drone attack on Moscow overnight. The prospect of the battle between Russia and Ukraine entering a more deadly and dangerous phase was also inferred by the former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev. Today, he reiterated claims that his country would have no choice but to use nuclear weapons should Ukraine's counter-offensive be successful. Sam Holder has the latest.
Drone attacks in the heart of the Russian capital. The Kremlin said 3 were downed over Moscow last night, causing damage to office blocks, including one housing multiple Russian ministries. The physical impact of the attack was limited, but the strike has symbolic reverberations. There's been no confirmation from Kiev, but this evening President Zelensky had a warning for the Kremlin.
Gradually, the war is returning to the territory of Russia, to its symbolic centres and military bases, and this is an inevitable, natural and absolutely fair process.
President Putin was in St. Petersburg for the annual Naval Day parade, announcing 30 new ships. While he hardly mentioned the so-called special operation in Ukraine or the Moscow attacks, former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev again claimed the country may have to use nuclear weapons in response to the counteroffensive. Although not part of President Putin's inner circle, he is deputy chairman of Russia's Security Council. He tweeted, "Just imagine that the NATO-supported offensive turned out successful and they took away a part of our land. Then we would have to use the nuclear weapon. There would simply be no other way out."
I think Medvedev's response does chime in with quite a lot of opinion, certainly in the popular media in Russia. It's all state-controlled, but this is the sort of thing you hear on the Russian media, and it's sort of blood-curdling. And I think Putin allows that to happen because he wants to keep this sense of alarm in the West alive, that somehow this crisis could spin out of control into a nuclear crisis.
The former president's threat of nuclear war may be overblown, but it shows the unease in Russia, caused by both Ukraine's counteroffensive and capabilities in launching attacks on Russian cities far from the front line. Sam Holder, ITV News.
The future of HS2 is in doubt after the plans were described as unachievable by the official infrastructure watchdog. The transport link that aims to join central and northern England to London by high-speed rail has faced major delays and criticism throughout its construction. Now, the Infrastructure and Projects Authority says there are major issues with the timetable, budget and quality of the programme. A search for a person reported to have been swept into the sea in North Wales has been called off. The Coast Guard's helicopter and lifeboat were among the teams scouring the coastline off Anglesey for almost 24 hours. And the American rapper Cardi B has thrown a microphone at a fan in Las Vegas after having a drink thrown on her as she was performing. After the show, the rapper retweeted a different video angle of the incident. The Grammy winner is one of several musicians to have missiles thrown at them recently. Others include Harry Styles and Pink. To sport now, and Australia have dug their heels in to put a dampener on Stuart Broad's big day. The England bowler announced his retirement from cricket last night, with the Ashes Test to be his last. But Australia's batsmen were in no mood for sentimentality, as Chris Scudder reports.
One last time for Stuart Broad, a standing ovation from the Oval crowd and a guard of honour from the Australians who have come to respect him after more than a decade and a half at the top. An emotional day for mum and dad, former England batsman Chris Broad. The Ashes would be where one of English cricket's favourite sons would say farewell.
He's achieved a huge amount in his career and he's going out at the top.
In control, seems like he wanted to take control of his own destiny, when to say goodbye.
Totally taken aback, you know. I really wanted him to play for maybe a couple of years because he's really on top of the game now. He's bowling so beautifully well.
And how about this for the last ball he would ever face in Test cricket, bowing out with a big six as England were all out for 395.
Fabulous strike from Stuart Broad.
But his job here was with the ball, trying to bowl England to victory in his final ever appearance. It was far from easy. The Aussie openers, Warner and Khawaja, were in fine form, and there was little Broad could do about it. Whatever England threw at them, they survived, just.
Oh, now it's played that.
The Aussies survived a battering before rain ended the penultimate day early. They'll resume tomorrow on 135 without loss, needing 249 more runs to spoil Stuart Broad's farewell. Chris Scudder, ITV News.
On to Formula One, and Max Verstappen has won the Belgian Grand Prix, finishing ahead of Red Bull teammate Sergio Perez.
Max Verstappen takes the checkered flag, wins the Belgian Grand Prix, and it's a hat-trick.
It's the Dutchman's 8th race win on the trot, just one shy of sharing the all-time record with Sebastian Vettel. Sir Lewis Hamilton finished 4th and drove the fastest lap of the race. In the Women's World Cup, England midfielder Keira Walsh is in good spirits after her knee injury scare against Denmark, according to her teammate Rachel Daly. The 26-year-old was taken off the pitch on a stretcher in England's 1-0 victory over Denmark. She won't be part of Tuesday's final group game against China, but could play a part later in the tournament. And finally, the Prince of Wales has been surprising diners in London by serving up burgers from a van. And as you'd expect, Prince William's burgers aren't any ordinary burgers. These were veggie, planet-saving burgers. Charlie Frost has the story.
Can we have 4 Earthshot burgers, please, Chef?
Wait. Coming right up.
Morning, everyone. Thank you very much. Yeah, that's Prince William.
The future king, the burger server. It's an unexpected combination, but the grub he's rustling up isn't your usual fast food.
So, for those of you who don't know, the Earthshot Prize is there to repair and regenerate the planet.
A prize set up by the Prince 3 years ago, he challenged the cooks at YouTube channel Sorted Food to design a dish using 3 of the winning products from 2022.
Morning, guys. Royal Mail. I brought you some Earthshot bits and pieces. I think we were all quite nervous on the morning. We're sort of waiting for it all to kick off. But as soon as he arrived, he made us feel incredibly relaxed.
So that was kind of the whole vibe of the room. And he just instantly mucked in.
And he was just really, really chilled and made it a very easy process for us. Lift the cloche.
And that process led to the creation of a vegan burger. The ingredients grown in small greenhouses in India, which use 98% less water and yield 7 times more crops. They cook them on stoves created in Kenya that use biomass fuel instead of charcoal, and place them in packaging made out of seaweed, not plastic.
No worries.
And not just better for the planet, they went down well with the Prince's surprised punters.
The burger was so good, we loved the burger.
Prince William hoping this latest promotion of his green cause will be food for thought. Charlie Frost, ITV News.
And that's all for now. I'm back with the late news at 10 past 10. Until then, have a great evening. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.